So, okay, we're going to switch gears now. We've talked enough about L.A. Let's talk about some football that just happened this week. And I kind of feel like it may have been a few weeks ago, probably a month ago, maybe more than that, where we had a similar kind of topic like this about a certain other head coach, where the podcast was titled Fire This Man. But this week we're also talking about another coach that needs to get fired. Mark, tell me why Marvin Lewis needs to get canned in Cincinnati.
The plain and simplest way to put it is you are 0-6 in the playoffs. You have not won a single playoff game. 0-7.
He has tied Jim Morris Sr.
Yeah, that's embarrassing. You should be embarrassed, your team. And that's the thing, too. It's not even just that you go and you lose, because that's embarrassing. We're not going to deny that. The fact that you go with the teams that you have had, just every year, great, well put together teams.
Yeah, 0-7 in the playoffs.
You can't go with a team this good and lose that often. Coaches have been fired for less. You know, it's just, yes, regular season does great all the time, but it doesn't matter. I mean, would you rather go to the playoffs every year, lose? Or would you rather say, you know what, forget it, we have to try something else? Eventually, you have to change something. Ricky, the definition of insanity. I feel like I just said this a couple weeks ago. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Cincinnati Bengals fans, what are you doing?
Well, here's my thought, and just a little fact to it. Here are the playoff appearances for Marvin Lewis. Here's all 7 games. The 2005 season, wild card game, lost to the Steelers. The 2009 season, lost in the wild card game to the New York Jets. Then 11, Houston Texans. Houston Texans in 12. The Chargers in 13. The Colts in 14. The Steelers this past year. And I know why they're not going to fire Marvin Lewis. This year, they're not going to fire him because they're going to say, oh, but Andy Dalton wasn't out there.
Yep.
Oh, you know what? Andy Dalton got hurt. And if he didn't get hurt, we wouldn't even been playing that game. We would have at least had a bye. Because we may have been able to win some of the games that McCarron lost.
Yeah. And the thing is, too, this was the year everyone was saying the Bengals are finally going to break the curse. They're finally going to win. They're not going to be one and done. Me and you
were kind of riding that bandwagon
for a little while, yeah. I think in the offseason I said they could go all the way to the AFC Championship
game.
Mean,
didn't we have I want to say it was our AFC North preview, we had a Bengals fan comment like that, oh, this is not necessarily this is going to be the year that we get to the Super Bowl, but this is going to be the year that things are going to change. And then we got to the end, and things didn't change.
No.
Now, I know Andy Dalton got injured.
But
however,
this team is put together better than most teams in the NFL.
Here's the reason I think Marvin Lewis needs to get fired, and it is not because they lost that game.
All the games.
The reason Marvin Lewis needs to get fired is because of what happened at the end of that game. Because the first thing I thought, maybe it's the college guy in me. Usually when a team loses scholarships, Mark, or gets a bowl banned, or the NCAA comes down on them, do you know where I'm going with? The one saying that they usually use? Loss of institutional what?
Integrity.
Control.
Integrity is what I feel like as the NFL guy.
Yeah. Institutional control. Lack of institutional control. That's what I felt at the end of that game. Burfict should have not been in that game. You know what? For me, maybe it's me. After he started running after the interception, pull him over and say, hey, you know what? Sit. You're done. Then the fumble. After that hit, he doesn't need, and this is a total different discussion that I'm fine getting into, but Marvin Lewis, when I see that from your football team, and I see Pac-Man Jones, how he acted.
Still acting.
The first thing I think of is you have no control over your team.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
And that is a problem. Get the hell out of town.
It's interesting. First of all, I think that he should have just been ejected from the. I don't know why the refs didn't just eject him at that point. I know it's basically the end of the game, but make the point.
It's the same thing with the Odell Norman game. Why weren't those two ejected?
Yeah.
It's because and I'm not putting blame on the refs. I'm putting blame on us as fans. We criticize these refs so much, and don't get me wrong, there are times where they're fucking stupid. However, we criticize them so much to when we get to these situations, they don't want to make the call because they don't want to be the guy getting criticized for it.
They're still trying to figure out what a catch is, and they're like, I'm not touching this one. Yeah, I think it's tough because it's hard to blame
shoulder met head. No,
yeah, it's hard to blame. And hear me out before anybody in the comment section jumps on me. It's hard to blame Marvin Lewis for the actions of other people, but the situation that he's in is that he's supposed to be the guy responsible for these people and controlling these people. So yes, he's got a loose cannon on the team. But if you're going to have a loose cannon on the team, you got to control the loose cannon. Otherwise, you don't get to have the loose cannon, or you don't get to be the guy with the leash. Because there is no more leash. Marvin Lewis did not control his players. He knew they were in an emotional state. He let that team fall apart. He built the team that fell apart.
Oh, they fell apart
in
front of our eyes. Right in front of the nation's eyes.
And it's just, I can't help but go back to 7 one-and-dones. You get in there that first game and you lose. At some point, this is what I've been saying about the Cincinnati Bengals. When does the organization say, okay, enough is enough? They did it in Denver. They said enough is enough. John Fox got kicked out. They did it in Chicago before that. Enough was enough.
That was a 10-6 season he got fired.
Lovie Smith got kicked out, and he did more. He won more playoff games. He got to a Super Bowl. He's got to another NFC Championship game. He did a lot more than Cincinnati Bengals did. Now, Cincinnati Bengals, I would argue, are a better team. Probably. Maybe not necessarily the 05 Bears team, but the Super Bowl one. But at least the NFC Championship game, he's a better team than that.
Yeah.
And you still can't put that together. You still can't make that happen. If Rex Grossman can get to a Super Bowl, you're telling me that you couldn't get A.J. McCarron to win one game or Andy Dalton to win one of those like 3 or 4 games that he's played in?
I'm going to throw out another example, and this one may be a little bit different, but you were putting up coaches. It's just like the Jets.
Yeah.
After 4 years of no playoffs, Rex Ryan, they said, I don't care if you made it to back-to-back AFC title games. Get out of here. We need a change.
After one season in Buffalo, they're telling Rex Ryan, hey, if you don't do it next year, you're out.
Yeah.
At some point, there has to be some type of responsibility. I mean, at some point, how many times can this team just say, next year? I mean, we got close-ish. We were in the hunt. We were in the playoffs. At some point, don't you want something better? Or are you just okay being mediocre? Because really, the Cincinnati Bengals are perpetually mediocre. Yes, they're a little bit better than that in the offseason, but the results are what matters. They never win. You can't go to the playoffs 7 times and lose 7 times without a single win. I mean, that's just embarrassing. I mean, being a Cleveland Browns fan sucks, but at least in Cleveland, you can look over to Cincinnati and go, all right, well, at least we didn't lose 7 back-to-back playoff games. Well, they're not back-to-back playoff games. 6 back-to-back playoff games. It's just the Cincinnati Bengals, yes, they're a good team. Yes, they win a lot of games. A lot of games. They won 12 of them. But in the end, nothing matters because nothing changes and you're never going to get good enough. Something has to change eventually. It's just, that's all it is.
Well, and one of the things, I'm going to make a kind of reference over to baseball. I mentioned earlier I'm a Cubs
Everyone
fan.
right now is going, oh, damn it,
well, they're
baseball.
going, oh, baseball. But the thing I think of is 2003 to 2006, the Chicago Cubs. We get Dusty Baker. Baker brings us to the playoffs. However, after 3 years, what did we do? We said, you know what? Enough is enough. Get out of town. Here's Lou Piniella. Then when he wasn't cutting it and got 3 years, we got someone else. The last manager we had before Joe Madden, Renteria, We gave him one season and then said, nope, you know what? We like this guy better. He got chutted.
Now, the question really comes down for Cincinnati Bengals fans. And Marvin Lewis is a good coach. We're not saying he's not a good coach. No. It's just saying he's not producing.
However, when you have a offensive coordinator like Hugh Jackman, not Jackman,
Hugh Jackson.
I wanted to say Hugh Jackman.
I know, Hugh Jackman's the best.
I mean, when you have, I'm going to just call him Wolverine.
When you've got Wolverine out there,
Hugh Jackson's nickname now on the podcast is Wolverine. When you got Wolverine as your offensive coordinator.
Man, I hope he gets a head coaching job somewhere.
You can't let him walk away. You can't let him walk away.
And now he's going to.
They should do what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do. They should say, bye-bye, bye, Lewis, because we got to keep Wolverine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just my question for Cincinnati Bengals fans, though, is do you want to continue being good or do you want to risk being not good for the possibility of being great?
You know what I really want to see happen now? And I'm sorry, Bengals fans, for hoping this, but with the lack of, I want to say success in the playoffs.
Eventually it's going to fall apart.
And no needing to change, this is what I want to see happen. Wolverine goes to the Browns. Browns start making the playoffs and start winning games, and the Bengals either continue to lose in the playoffs to the Browns. That would be even better. Jackson brings his Browns to the playoffs and beats his old team.
With A.J. McCarron as his quarterback, somehow.
Or they just fall apart and the Browns become the better team in Ohio. Two things I want to point out. Two coaches that were in the NFC playoffs this past weekend, Mike Zimmer, Jay Gruden. Who were they under? Marvin Lewis. Now, both of them didn't win, but that was only one. That was only one game. Mike Zimmer should have won that game, though.
Oh, well, get a better holder. Get a better kick holder.
But I think Marvin Lewis if you're a Bengals fan that doesn't believe Lewis should be fired, I want to hear from you down below.
For sure.
I want to hear from you down below.
And you know what? I will be fair to say that part of it is just kind of a little bit reactionary. I mean, it doesn't make sense. The guy's a good coach. He's got a winning record. He's got a good record, especially for the last 5-6 years. But eventually, you do have to just say how much of this can you put up with before you want something else, and are you willing to risk being worse for the possibility to be better? For me, I am.
You know what I just found out?
What's that?
The 3 assistant coaches.
They're all gone, right?
Well, the 3 assistant coaches that became head coaches that were like assistants under Marvin Lewis, 2 of them were Vikings coaches. You got Leslie Frazier, went 0-1 in the playoffs. Then you have Jay Gruden and Mike Zimmer. As of right now, 0-1 in the playoffs.
Nobody wins.
Is it just assume that if you're under Marvin Lewis,
you've got the stank on you?
Well, not that. It's just you learn how to lose in the playoffs so that you never lose. I know that's not true because Zimmer, like I said, should have won his game if he didn't have a piece of shit kicking it or a piece of shit holding the ball.
To be fair, though, Vikings should have scored more points than they did. They should have scored more points.
Should have made the field goal.
They should have scored more points.
It comes down to that play. Coulda, shouldas all over the.
But
we're not getting into that.
I think for the Bengals, I think right now with Marvin Lewis too is it's going to be tough because they've already started to lose some of the assistant coaches. They're probably going to lose. Well, they're definitely going to lose offensive coordinator.
They're going to lose
There's
Jackson.
a good chance they lose the defensive coordinator.
Jackson's going.
It's all falling apart. The defense is much better.
He's either going to the Giants or the Browns. He's going to the Giants or the Browns.
So you're going to lose everything and be stuck with the guy who doesn't win, Marvin Lewis.
He's going to
have fun.
Let's put it this way. Right now, Wolverine got a second interview with the Browns. So he's got the Browns. To me, when you get a second interview, you've got the job locked up.
And he's sitting there going, please, somebody else give me a job. Please, somebody else offer.
They were talking on PTI. If you're Wolverine, do you take the Brown job or do you tell them, wait, I got an interview with the Giants?
You interview with the Giants.
I think so, too.
With quarterback mystery or better Manning. I'm going to take better Manning if I have the option. And just a better organization. I'm sorry, Cleveland. I like you guys. I want you to win a game one day. But I want to play in New York.
I think Hugh Jackson can turn around Cleveland. Not Super Bowl, but he can make them respectable. Because I think he can work with a quarterback.
There's a lot of work to be done to make them respectable.
Look at what Jay Gruden was able to do with Kirk Cousins in Washington after he was like, he's my guy.